employee engagement, training and development. With this disaster, I've been called in to help with our recruitment efforts, which are tremendous. As Katie mentioned, with the COVID-19 pandemic, we're all affected. And our nation's small businesses are really, taking it terribly. Not, with the non-essential businesses shut down, it's having a huge impact. So, and I've been with Office of Disaster Assistance for over 30 years. It was my first job out of college. I didn't really know what I was going to do out of college, and I took a temporary job in our Fort Worth office. And shortly after that, Hurricane Hugo hit Puerto Rico and Florida, and I just became, I guess, an adrenaline junkie because, and just became enamored with the staff and how our people just go all out to help disaster survivors. So the mission of the SBA Office of Disaster Assistance is to provide low-interest loans to businesses of all sizes, private nonprofit organizations, homeowners, and renters to repair or replace real estate, personal property, machinery and equipment, inventory, and business assets that have been damaged or destroyed in a declared disaster. We achieve that mission through several field offices. We have our customer service center in Buffalo, New York. We have a field operations center east in Atlanta, Georgia, a field operations center west in Sacramento, California, a processing and disbursement center in Fort Worth, Texas. We have our IT, administrative, human resource functions centered out of Herndon, Virginia. And then we have our headquarters office in Washington, D.C. And so with declared disasters, historically, that's what you would think of as a disaster: tornadoes, floods, hurricanes, wildfires, earthquakes. We've also responded to some of the man-made disasters, as far as the Oklahoma City bombing, the World Trade Center, and then 9/11. But the current situation with the COVID-19 pandemic. So let me back up. So with historically, with those type disasters, you have a specific date that you can hinge your disaster declaration to. With this COVID-19, there is no specific date. As we're seeing, it's just continuing to unfold before us. And historically or legally, disasters had to be linked to a specific event. So with COVID-19, Congress passed legislation, which President Trump signed into law, and that was the week of March 9th, allowing SBA to use its disaster authority to declare COVID-19 pandemic a disaster, which is very fortunate for the country. So with this change in statute, the SBA coordinated extensively with the states and territories governors to submit declaration requests for economic injury disaster assistance. This is a little bit different than physical disasters, physical disaster damage that you would get from, I'll call it a normal disaster, the wildfires, tornadoes, hurricanes. So within a week of this change in law, and our receiving our first declaration package, all 50 states, District of Columbia, and the 5 U.S. territories were made eligible or could apply for economic injury disaster assistance, meaning that 30 million small businesses could access the critical financing assistance during this COVID crisis. So again, so as far as the differences between physical damage versus economic damage, SBA has taken a completely different approach to how we make our program available to disaster survivors. So generally, for disasters causing physical damage, we set up field offices there at that physical location. We have people on site. We really help, we really handhold them through the process and help them, face to face as they go through the application process. And again, these are people that have lost, all their physical belongings, and it's very traumatic for them. Um, However, with this one, there is no physical property damage. We are, and actually, we still have a strong presence in Puerto Rico. We're closing loans from the hurricanes Harvey, Irma, Maria survivors. However, for the safety of our employees, the safety of the small business owners who need our assistance, we're doing everything virtually. So the people on the front lines now is our call center. Um, and so in order to help these 30 million businesses who've been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, SBA is increasing the number of our disaster recovery specialists who will be manning the phones and the email traffic in Buffalo, New York, from approximately 400 to 1,600 employees. So this is really important that we need these people on the front lines to help the small business owners, over the phone or via email with our to explain the program, to interact, to explain the eligibility requirements, and then how to apply. So that's one of the first key duties of a disaster recovery specialist that we're looking to hire for. In addition, one must use our loan application system to check the status of loan applications, respond via phone or email, assist borrowers with completion of loan closing documents, and answering their questions about disbursement process, accepting borrower payments, using online payment tools, and using our computer systems to research customer inquiries, record call activity, and prepare appropriate forms and letters. So, as I've laid out, we are hiring these positions in response to COVID-19. There will be an end to this. So as such, these are temporary positions. The Office of Disaster Assistance has a special hiring authority that allows us to hire any position, any grade that we need to respond to a disaster. Our initial appointments will be for 6 months, and they may be extended as long as there's sufficient workload. The 6-month appointment does allow for health insurance. However, because the appointment is less than a year, other federal benefits such as retirement, we call it TSP, but a 401k, life insurance are not available with this temporary appointment. You must be available for extensive overtime, working up to 7 days a week, 10 to 14 hours a day. Again, we're doing this virtually, so we will allow. We have those 4 locations that are the Buffalo, Atlanta, Citrus Heights, Fort Worth. If people live in those general areas, we will use those offices as the duty station, but you will work from home. If you don't live in those 4 areas, we will establish your residence as your duty station, and that will drive how your pay is set, because there's locality pay based on duty station. So your residence will be the driver of how your salary is. Again, because we're doing this virtually, employees must have access to high-speed internet. We will conduct the onboarding, the orientation, and the training will all be virtual. So as far as the salary level, we're looking at GS 7, which using the sort of the rest of the U.S. pay scale, that would be sort of a base level. A 7 step 1 would be 43,000, and it goes up to a GS 9, which is 53,000. Obviously, DC, New York, Dallas, Fort Worth, they have higher. Their locality pay scale is higher. So it's going to vary, that salary will vary a little bit based on where you actually live. Let's see. Kind of going on the training, we're also working closely with FEMA and one of our other federal partners, and to help us bridge the gap as we're trying to hire. They're loaning us 500 detailees. and we're bringing them on in groups of 50, and we're doing this virtual training. So hopefully, this virtual training will go smoothly by the time you start coming on board. So we're really just making so much tremendous change in a very short period to respond as quickly as possible to the small businesses. So I think that is sort of my high level overview of what's going on and what our needs are. So I'm ready
Yeah,
for questions.
there's been some questions popping up, but one of them being, when would this position begin and what does that look like? Um, how quick can you get people onboarded?
Um, so so there is a bit of a process. So we need you to apply using the USA Staffing link that should have been in the invitation. We have people, reviewing all the resumes and doing the qualifications. Um, I, don't. I believe we're basically just hiring, where it's not an interview process. So as we're hiring, as we see people that are qualified, we're hiring, and then making the job offer. You have to pass an initial credit bureau score of at least 500. There's the Declaration of Federal Employment, and then you go to an accelerated background check. We're not doing the fingerprints at the moment, and then as you get through the suitability background check, then we'll be making the firm job, what we call the firm job offer, and we will be doing it in stages so that we can have groups to do this virtual training, and probably similar to like how we're handling FEMA.
Got it. So what would you say rough time frame that could look like?
Um, I what I would say probably at best it would be about 2 weeks to get people through the process. I think
Okay.
that's kind of what I'm seeing at the moment. We're working to accelerate that, but that would be the best case scenario, I think.
Got it. And what are some of those main qualifiers that they're looking for on the resume?
So basically, the disaster recovery specialist, I'm going to get into HR speak, but it's in the 1101 series, so it's a sort of a general business job group. So we would be looking for basically the ability to explain programs orally or writing, and to be able to research and analyze and respond to inquiries. So I think I'm a little bit familiar with, I have one of my employees worked in Paraguay, or was a Peace Corps volunteer in Paraguay, I think 2016. And I remember looking at his resume and how he counseled some small businesses down there and helped them do business plans and such. So I think that there's a lot of transferable skills that are just natural to your volunteer assignments. So I think you would just highlight those skills.
Okay, great. There's some questions on, you know, we don't know the end of this, the extent of this, but do you
Right.
have, are they in 3-month terms? Are you assessing as you go? Is there a chance for like just taking a 3-month term appointment, or do you have to stay on? How does that work?
Well, I mean, so you do have free will, so so
Right.
we can't force you to stay beyond 3 months if that's all you're looking for. We definitely, so the initial appointment is for 6 months. I can't even promise that the position will last for 6 months, because we don't know. This disaster is something that we've never experienced before. But so I will say, like Hurricane Harvey, Irma, Maria, I believe we had, I'm kind of going off the top of my head, I think we had like 400,000 applications.
Yeah.
And, and that took quite a while for that to work its way through the system. But, and then the call center is at the forefront. So they take the brunt of the calls at the very beginning. They spike up very quickly, and then they taper off also pretty quickly. So However, again, we're dealing with something that we've never seen before. As I said, it based on the numbers. 30 million businesses are impacted. Now, will all 30 million businesses apply with this? I don't know that. But as another example, so last week, um, these are numbers from this past Sunday, but the week before, as we're still declaring the disasters, our call center took 100,000 calls. The previous 5 months, they took 100,000 calls. So in 1 week, we did the same amount of work as we had done the previous 5 months. So the need is real. Again, I can't promise that these positions will last 6 months. I think they will. Maybe some won't, some will, but it's all based on the workload activity and how well you perform. We have great metrics. We're able to monitor, how with our phone system, we're able to see how well people take the calls, how long they're able to. We have great quality control. So as when things do taper off, we're able to keep the star performers. But again, there are temporary jobs, and I wouldn't count on it becoming permanent.
Yeah. And it looks like there's a lot of, that's definitely an increased amount of calls in this time. So we're getting some questions on here that are asking about if overtime pay and how are you compensating for extra hours, and then also questions around time off. Is that still given?
So as I said, you will be required to work overtime. It is compensated. We have the pay charts spell out what the overtime rate is. It should be time and a half at the GS7 and GS9 level. Again, the overtime could be up to 7 days a week, 10 to 14 hours a day. We try to keep people to 6 days a week. We will be open 7 days a week. So we'll probably have people splitting Saturday and Sunday. But if the volume is there, we may require you to work 7 days a week. So if that happens, please don't say, Michael said I would only work 6 days a week.
Michael said, I'm not work this much. Yeah, it seems like it is. It's a crisis management, so we're here and
yes,
there for that, but they will get compensated for their time. So
yes. I think time off was the other question.
Yeah.
Again, that's going to be up to management. If you have, of course, in this time of social distancing, it's difficult for people to travel. I know in past disasters, if there's something specific, a wedding, a graduation that people had, obviously planned, I know our managers try to be flexible, as flexible as possible for those type of one-time family events that are, important. But that would be up to the manager to approve or disapprove any requests for time off.
Got it. And there's some questions here just for clarification. You're speaking to the positions that are in the call center. I know some other people are noticing there's other positions in the SBA that are available, but this is the one that you're talking about.
Yeah, today we're focused on the call center. We're, I'm hoping to do another spotlight later next week or the week after to spend more time on those other positions.
And so would you be able to, just to get some insight into the calls themselves, give us an idea of what one of those calls might look like? What kind of thing? I know it could be a number of things, but just a little bit inside of the day-to-day work.
So I talked about, we have a really robust phone system. So, the callers will call in, they're through the phone queue, they're directed to a specific team to handle, whatever the call is. I'm obviously winging it a little bit here, but so really, I think initially the calls are going to be focused on, please tell me about this program. How does it work? What is the interest rate? What is the dollar amount? what forms do I need to provide? Um, so it's sort of those explaining the program type questions, of which, as part of the training, we will make sure that you have all the resources you need to address those type questions. And then as the disaster evolves a little bit and people made it through, they've had their questions answered about what is the program and how do I apply, and then they apply. Then they'll start calling in, asking about, well, what's the status of my loan? Has it been approved? Where is the initial disbursement? Because as we don't disperse the loan funds all in one uh, one one disbursement. We stagger them out, um, and so people may be checking on that, and we'll also be checking on how do we close. Actually, they'll be asking how do we close the loan to make sure that all the forms are signed, and if we're taking collateral, that SBA has proper collateral documents.
Got it. Okay. Good breadth of kind of some of the things that might be handled. Do you know if this position specifically is hiring on NCE candidates preferably, or taking all
NCE.
non-competitive eligibility?
So we're using our specific ODA disaster hiring authority.
Oh,
So your non-competitive, and so it is an accepted appointment, so it's accepted from competitive procedures. So we're able to hire anyone, any citizen of the United States, and we don't need a special waiver of the non-competitive
got
procedures.
it. And I saw some questions on, so I know that this position is going to be virtual, and you did mention earlier that you do have office specific locations, but it doesn't matter where they are for preferential, for like when they apply. It's not
No.
preferred. And will they be issued, a laptop, a phone, that kind of stuff? Or are they using their own personal items? How does that work?
You will not be issued a phone. Our call system will route the calls to your phone. We're still working through the technology piece of the laptop. We're right now we don't have laptops sitting in a warehouse for 1,000 people, so we've got laptops ordered. So that is a piece that we're actually still working through and trying to get some answers to. We may ask people to have their own laptop, and we may have some sort of virtual image that allows that laptop into our secure environment. But that's sort of an IT technical question that is I don't have the answer to that today.
Got it. Yeah. Are there opportunities for bilingual positions, or is that a preferred qualifier for hiring? Or
I don't see that on our vacancy announcement. I would put in big bold print whatever language you are bilingual in, so that it stands out. Because I do believe that we will have, Korean businesses, Spanish businesses. We have a whole wealth of diversity out there that may need assistance in their language of choice. So.
got it. So for RPCVs, putting on that they have the language skills and the NCE and some of the qualifiers as far as working with small businesses or groups would be helpful for.
Yeah, and even if they haven't worked with small businesses, I think if they've explained programs, that's sufficient. So just talk about how you've been able to explain in writing or verbally, or done presentations on a program, so that and to communicate how that program operates.
Okay, great. And also, I know a lot of volunteers work with different groups of people and run their own programs. So would that also be something that would?
Yes, yeah, volunteer experience is qualifying. Just a note, with doing when doing qualifications, it is crucial that you identify the number, like besides the dates of your employment, you must identify, the average number of hours that you worked, uh, because if we just see dates, we can't assume that you were working a 40-hour week. It could have been a 10-hour week. It could have been an 80-hour week. We have no idea unless you identify it. So without those hours, you'll be deemed not qualified off the bat. So make sure that you include those hours in your resume.
And that's a good tip for all federal resumes,
Yes,
right?
yes,
They need
yes,
the hours that you've worked, your pay, um, and the time frame that you were working, right?
yes,
So,
yes.
okay, good to note. And just we need some clarification, and there were some people asking. You said 43 to 53,000. Um, I know that that means, for the annual salary, so for the 6-month time frame, it would most likely, be half of that or whatever it is.
Yeah, it would be half of that, except for, of course, there will be the extensive overtime that people will be earning.
And that
So,
is time and a half. So,
right.
right.
And
So,
then and also, obviously, you're federal employees now. Uh, and so we will, look at your current experience and see how well it matches up. And, if you're above these grades, we will look at using highest previous rate. So there might be steps, but that'll be on a case-by-case basis, depending on the individual.
great. I'm just looking for some more here. So, when you are after this role, you mentioned that there's potential for them to be hired into SBA for full-time positions, but it's not guaranteed. Would you be accepting the folks that do get this role? Will you consider them for internal employment at SBA later on? Will they have a little bit of a leverage or preference
So,
afterward?
well, I mean, no, we can't, we're not able to grant preference. We have to follow merit system principles. So when we post vacancies, everybody's on equal footing. Um, I mean, I guess if there is, it's not preference, it's just as an inside person, you understand the position better. So you would probably, one would be able to better identify the skills, or it'd be a sharper skills match with the position posted. But we're not, because it's accepted service, there is no status associated with these positions. And so you would not be eligible to apply for internal merit system vacancy announcements. Now, it is ODA's practice, because generally we have about 1,000 employees, and 500 are career, and the other 500 are non-status employees. So as the career employees or the career vacancies come open, it's been ODA's practice for several years that we post all vacancies open as a delegated examining unit, meaning it's open to everyone. And then we also post it internally. So every career position, everybody has an option, is able to apply for. So we don't post it for internal candidates only and you're blocked. So like even our director positions are posted both ways. So you're always able to, so far our practice, it's not a requirement, but our practice has been to make sure all our employees are able to apply for all vacancies.
Great, thanks. There's some questions on what documentations you all need for this position, like college transcript or NC certification or DOS. I'll answer the second two because those are more Peace Corps documents. So your description of service for all your RPCVs that just were evacuated. If you don't have one, it's okay. You just translate that into the form of a resume and add what you've done as a volunteer. Most employers don't look for the description of service. It's nice to include, but they don't need that. And then, Michael, do you want to speak to any other documentation they need? There was some concern that if they couldn't get a college transcript or some of the documentation that they might need, and do they need to do a cover letter, these types of things?
Yeah, so I remember reading, so on the, you don't need a cover letter. So if you're qualifying, so just for example, if you have a master's degree, that's generally automatically qualifying at the GS9 level. So at the time of application, if all you have is your unofficial transcript, you can submit that. But before we actually hire you, we will need the official transcript. So if you don't have your official transcript, today or tomorrow as you're applying, use your unofficial, and that will at least get you through. However, if you are qualifying solely on education and not experience, and you don't include that transcript, the unofficial one, or preferably the official one, then you won't be found qualified. So it's only if you're qualifying solely on education that you must include either unofficial or official transcript.
Got it. Thanks for that. There were some questions on, how can you, what will consider you for the 9 position over the 7?
I'm not exactly, I don't have a good answer for that. We'll just be looking at the quals, and that's really down at the center level where they're doing the hiring. I don't have an answer.
Okay. They can probably look on the website as well, like it'll delineate what the 2 different descriptions are.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There is a breakdown for specialized experience between the 2.
Yeah.
And that is in the vacancy announcement.
Great. And I think your colleague posted that in the chat. If you are coming in late or if you are still looking for that link, it is in the chat box. If you can scroll through for this position that we're talking about. There was a couple questions on as far as working at the call center, what are the hours? Because it seems like it could be is it a 24/7 hotline, or is it Eastern Standard Time? What does that look like?
So again, we're covering all 50 states and the territories, which includes Guam and Saipan, which are I don't know what day it is out there. I don't know if it's tomorrow or today, but I mean, it's, I have not heard that we're 24/7. And I don't recall us going 24/7 on past disasters, but we have had night shifts, people working up to like midnight. I think generally in the past we had the office open from 6 to midnight, 6 a.m. to midnight, with like 2 or 3 shifts going. So I would imagine we will be doing something along those lines. Again, hopefully with people spread out, with the residences spread out all over the country, it'll be easier for us to take into consideration time zones that are farther west.
So it could be at any time or any hour.
Yeah, could be.
And it just depends on what the need is, I guess.
Yes, it will be evolving.
Got it. And it looks like some questions coming in about, so this is the one position coming up that you need like 1,000 or so folks for. What are some of the other positions that are up and coming that you could just speak very briefly to?
So we do have, so we have attorney positions in our, we actually have attorney positions, paralegal positions, loan specialist positions, loan assistant positions, program support positions, which I think those are limited to the Fort Worth location. These others are all open will be open or are open nationwide. And then we have a few admins, a handful of admin support positions in the Herndon location.
Okay. Yeah, so and you can find those all on USA Jobs. You can also use our career link Peace Corps jobs posting. If you're not on that and you're an RPCV, you can use that as well. Looks like some people are still have some questions about, so if they're using their own phone for this job, will they be given a cell phone plan, or how does that work? Or
under current guidelines, no. But again, things are evolving. That may change.
Got it. So figuring some of those out, but you will use your own phone and your phone
on the internet.
Got it. And so just for the volume of calls that are coming in, you did mention it kind of comes in fluxes. What would you say the volume of calls could be expected in like a day for an average worker at the call center?
You know, honestly, I don't know what the average worker is taking. I know for the center last week, I think we're getting, 15,000, 20,000 calls a day. And that was last week. I haven't heard numbers for this week. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know what the number is per worker.
Yeah. That's okay. It's coming in flux. I know I was helping with the duty officer line for Peace Corps, and we had so many calls coming in. It just depends on what the need is at whatever time. So,
right.
So based on, I'm looking at a few more of these questions. Give me a second. So a few questions on if their addresses were to change, or during their time in working with SBA, would their pay scale also change if they could update those in HR?
Yeah, so that would require a personnel action if you're moving, if you're one of the national hires and you live in Kansas City and you move to St. Louis, that would require personnel action because we're going to have to change your duty station. So that would be coordinated through your supervisor and through HR so that we could make that change.
Yeah, I know a lot of volunteers, when they came back, they're quarantined, so maybe not in their home of record or where they're going to be, or don't know exactly where they're going to end up. So
right.
Just being mindful of that. There were some questions on here. Peace Corps service is definitely a 40-hour work week, but more. A lot of people say Peace Corps, you're on 24/7. So would you recommend that they put the 40-hour work week or more? What would that?
Well, so when doing quals, so even if people do a 60-hour week and they put 60 hours on their resume, which a lot of people do work 60-hour weeks, when doing qualifications, the ceiling is 40 hours. So you'd only get credit for the 40-hour week when we're doing the quals.
Okay.
But it doesn't hurt to show that you actually work a 50, 60-hour week, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it won't, as far as your experience, it won't give you more credit for your experience.
Okay, got it. Good to know. There was a few questions like that. I know volunteers tend to sometimes work 24/7, so it is one of those things that don't know how to write a resume with that kind of work experience. So,
right.
some questions on here. If you're going based off of education, do you need, okay, so you answered about the transcripts, and you did say a master's degree would qualify for the GS-9, correct?
Yes, I mean, it depends on what the education is, what the master's is in, but if the education is related to the position, it would be qualifying. If you have a master's in biology, I don't know that that's really relevant to our position, so that would not necessarily be qualifying.
Okay. So, for example, what would be some of the masters you would look for?
I mean, off the top, a business degree, finance, accounting, those business type degrees.
Yeah, so basic business degrees.
Yeah, and there's others that might be, but I don't want to state those and give bad information.
Yeah.
Without having the qual standards in front of me.
Right, yeah. So there are some questions on, can they submit a regular resume or does it have to be federal?
A regular, as long as it identifies your experience and they can do the quals, it doesn't have to follow the federal model. But you would just want, when you open up the vacancy announcement and you see that specialized experience, you just want to make sure that your experience, or that the specialized experience that we're working for, you identify in your resume as under someplace where you worked. If it's not clear that you were explaining programs at your current job, and you just do it as a bullet point at the top of your resume, I explain programs, and it's not linked to a specific position, that's not going to be qualifying, because we have to see where you actually utilize that experience.
Okay, it's good to know. And I also was looking at, some people had questions about if the position is full-time, are you hiring on any part-time positions as well?
So the positions are temporary, but they are not part-time. They are far from part-time. They are full-time plus overtime.
Got it. Yeah, I thought so, but there's a lot of questions here for you.
Yeah, we have no part-time positions.
And also for questions of overtime, is it only overtime pay, or does SBA do credit hours or comp time?
So overtime is directed, and at this grade level, if your supervisor directs you to work overtime, and you say, "Hey, I'd like to earn comp time instead," you can elect comp time, but we cannot direct you to work comp time at this grade level. That's at your choice. So the standard for us would be overtime. Credit hours is voluntary, and this is a situation like where at the end of the day, you're working on a project and you just want to wrap something up. If you're authorized to earn credit hours and it's at your volition, you could earn credit hours. But we're really not talking about that in this situation here, because we're directing you to work overtime.
Great. Okay, thanks for answering that. Speaking of overtime, I know it's kind of tough to tell, but do you have an idea of how much overtime it could be a week, or is it?
So I would think base level would be 30 hours of overtime, I believe. So, and probably 40 a pay period.
That's a lot of work.
Because I'm thinking 10-hour days and at least a Saturday or a Sunday.
Got it. Yeah, and that is the time and a half they would get.
Yes.
Overtime.
Yes.
How flexible are you, given that this is a call center position, working overtime, but it is a temporary position? How flexible are you all in if they're scheduling other interviews or looking for other jobs in the meantime?
Um, yeah, so we really need people working. And
Yep.
like I said, if people need time off for, important family events, we try to flex. But here at the very beginning, we're, if obviously if you're ill, and you need to take sick leave, that sick leave is almost always approved without question,
Mhm.
unless it's going to be more than 3 days. But personal time scattered throughout the week, um, we're not going to be too um, we're not too lenient on approving personal time at the very forefront. As things taper off, then sure,
Got it. Yeah, you have a great need right now,
yeah,
so looking to hire on. Um, you mentioned earlier around 1,000 folks you're looking to hire on right now, correct?
correct,
And um, and that's as soon as possible, as soon as you can get them on.
yeah.
Um, there's some questions about, you know, working from home and um, IT concerns that folks might have about using their own phone or will they be given their own phone number that they can use, or is it they're getting the calls?
So the way our call center works, the so the the customer, the disaster survivor, they would never see your information. It funnels in to our system, and it forwards to your phone. Is that addressing the concerns that people have?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Right.
you would have, we would issue you a phone number that would forward to your phone.
Got it. And they would be filtering through their calls, so they would be receiving the calls that they
Yeah.
got it. Um, and some questions on, is it just purely taking calls all day, or is there some other work that is being done simultaneously?
Yeah, so we have two queues. We have the phone call queue and we have the email queue. So, or two teams, or we have lots of teams, but so two work streams coming in, and one is the phone calls and one is the emails. And so generally we have groups of people just responding to emails. You can't see me doing my hands, but I'm typing my hands. But so, um, yeah, right. Anyway, so yeah, some people might, and they may, and I'm not sure if management will try to mix it up so people don't get burned out on one or the other. But there are two workflow streams. One is emails and one is the phone calls.
Okay, great. So they are doing these two things simultaneously and working.
Or well, there might be a team working on just emails, and there might be just a team doing the phone calls. Because if you're handling the calls, you're not going to be able to probably construct good sentences, because it's mind can only do one thing well at once generally.
Got it. And then you delineate what teams are doing those when.
Yes,
Maybe you get a break on the phones and you go to emails at some point, or
yes, perhaps. Yeah.
got it. Okay. Well, we have about 5 minutes left, so we've answered a lot of the questions, not all of them, but again, if you joined late, feel free. We have recorded this. We will be posting this and sending this link out via email for you all to see the responses from earlier if you missed them, and also to answer questions. And just wanted to give you some time if there's any other things you wanted to share, because we have about 5 minutes. So about the position, I know we answered pretty much everything. So 1,000 positions available. The link to apply will be sent out in the email, and you're looking for RPCVs that have that experience working with programs and managing groups and also working with small businesses. And there's a couple other, there's some questions that we might not get to today, but if they do have some questions, is there a place that they should go to get those answered?
As far as the program, so I would just go to the SBA.gov website. We have lots of resources about the different our program and the other SBA resources, and then we also have a list of all the different job postings out there as well.
Okay, great. Thank you everyone for joining us today. It's been really great to have Michael here, and I know you all have been chatting in the chat box, so thank you to the other SBA team members for answering any questions, or you all for sharing the information that you have in the chat box. There was a few other ones. We did mention that they can apply right now on USA Jobs. The position is open. There are other positions, but the position that you're talking about, we did put in the chat box, and we will send out to all the all the RPCVs that were on this call, or that even if you couldn't make it, we'll send that out to them. And hopefully we can get over 1,000 applicants from that. Yeah. So thank you so much. And Polly, thank you for signing today for us.
Yes, thank you so much.
And I just wanted to share with you all, we will be doing the Office of Third Goal and Return Volunteer Services, and Peace Corps as a whole will be doing more employer spotlights to come. So if you want to see what the next ones that are available, please log into the RPCV portal, and you can see the next ones that are coming up. And like you mentioned, Michael, there might be another one with SBA for a different position to come. Did you want to touch on that a little bit at all before we go?
Yeah, I think we're wanting to see how this today went, and we'll work with your team to see what we can schedule later on.
Okay. Well, great. Thanks again for being here with us, and thank you all for being here. And we look forward to seeing all those applications come in from Michael. We'll send you out the email with that link. And if there were some questions that weren't answered, I'll look through the questions and see if we can answer any in the email that goes out to everyone. Okay?
Thanks,
everyone.